To reach Amsterdam in the year 1600, we must first dissolve the tourist image of idyllic canals and neatly ordered bicycles. Erase the glow of red lights in the windows and the sound of electric trams. Imagine the clean air growing heavy, laden with a brackish mist that mixes with the sharp smell of tar, cured fish, and the smoke of burning peat. We are in a city that seems to float precariously between the grey sky and dark waters, a place where solid ground is a daily conquest rather than a geological certainty. The horizon is not dominated by office buildings, but by a true forest of wooden masts gently swaying in the harbour, creaking under the cold wind blowing in from the Zuiderzee. As you walk along the docks, the ground beneath your feet is not paved with smooth stone, but a mix of compacted mud and damp, slippery wooden planks. The city is dense, tight and vertical, built of dark red bricks and timber blackened by time. Silence is impossible here. The air vibrates with the sound of hammers from distant shipyards, the cries of seagulls fighting over scraps of fish, and the guttural dialect of sailors who have just returned from unimaginable voyages. You feel the dampness seeping into your clothes, a constant reminder that this place was stolen from the sea. Visually, the sensation is one of organized chaos. The perfect geometry of the canal rings that would be dug later in this century does not yet exist. In 1600, Amsterdam is a medieval labyrinth bursting at the seams. Houses lean forward as if watching passers-by, and narrow streets are crowded with barrels, ropes, and crates. It is a city in frenetic motion, an amphibious organism living with its feet in the water and its eyes fixed on the distant horizon. You are not a tourist here. You are a witness to a world on the verge of exploding into wealth and influence, but which, at this exact moment, still smells of sweat, effort, and wet wood. The very existence of this city in such an improbable location defies common logic. If we look down into the dark waters of the canals, we begin to understand Amsterdam's secret. It was not founded on solid rock, but raised upon an inverted forest of wooden piles, driven deep into soft clay and waterlogged peat. The geography here is an act of desperate and brilliant hydraulic engineering. The Amstel River flows northward and meets a dike, the dam, from which the city takes its name, creating a protected harbour where inland waters meet the tides of the open sea. In 1600, this harbour, known as the IJ, is the lung that oxygenates the local economy. There are no grand bridges spanning this vast body of water, only a constant dance of smaller boats carrying goods from ocean-going ships to warehouses in the city's core. The city functions as a transfer machine. The geography of canals and locks allows ships to bring grain from the Baltic, timber from Scandinavia, and salt from Portugal directly to the merchants' doors. Water is not an obstacle. It is the conveyor belt that moves the weight of the world into the city's storehouses. Its strategic position is fundamental. Amsterdam is shielded from the direct storms of the North Sea by barrier islands and the shallow inland sea. Yet at the same time, it enjoys open access to the oceans. It is a safe haven along a treacherous coast. The shores are reinforced with wooden and earth dikes, a constant wall against the threat of flooding. The city exists in a delicate balance, pumping water out while letting ships in. Every square meter of dry land is valuable and purposeful. Geography shaped a mentality of forced cooperation. Here, either everyone works together to keep the water outside, or everyone sinks together. The harbour is the city's mouth, always open, swallowing raw materials and spitting out wealth. Daily life in Amsterdam in the year 1600 is an intense sensory experience, shaped by pragmatism and haste. As you walk through the narrow alleys, you quickly realize that traffic does not consist of wheeled carriages, which would sink into the mud, but of wooden sleds pulled by horses, gliding over pavement greased with fat and producing a strange, hissing sound. The smell of the streets is a complex mixture, the sweet, cloying aroma of spices just beginning to arrive from the east, such as nutmeg and pepper, battles the stench of stagnant canals and the piles of salted herring displayed in the markets. The people you see are not idle aristocrats. Men dressed in dark clothing with stiff white collars move quickly, carrying account books under their arms. Women wearing starched white caps scrub the sidewalks in front of their houses with an obsession for cleanliness that contrasts sharply with the filth of the public streets. Work is relentless. We see artisans weaving wool, coopers assembling barrels for long sea voyages, and brewers rolling heavy casks. Beer here is safer than water and is consumed by everyone, from breakfast to dinner, by adults and children alike. The city is a cauldron of languages and accents. Religious refugees from across Europe, Jews from Portugal, Huguenots from France, merchants from Antwerp, have found here a place to live and trade. There is a tolerance born not of kindness, but of profit. If you can work and pay, you are welcome. Houses are narrow and deep, with hooks at the top used to hoist furniture and goods, since interior staircases are steep and tight. Domestic life unfolds toward the back, away from the street, while commercial life is exposed on the sidewalk. The sound of 1600 is the sound of coins being counted, wood being sawn, and a new world being built atop stacks of receipts and contracts. Power in Amsterdam does not reside in a royal palace surrounded by gardens, nor in a Gothic cathedral dominating the skyline. Power here is civic, corporate, and profoundly urban. The city's nervous center is Dam Square, but not as an empty ceremonial space. It is a place of weighing and measuring. And the most important building is not a king's throne, but the Waag, the weighing house, where goods are taxed and standardized. Authority is expressed through the precision of scales and the validity of contracts. Those who govern the city are not monarchs anointed by God, but a council of regents, wealthy merchants who view public administration as an extension of their own businesses. Walking near the harbor, you can feel the presence of what is about to become the greatest corporation in history, the Dutch East India Company. Although still in its early years of formal organization, the structure of power it represents is already alive. Warehouses are the city's true treasure vaults, storing pepper, silk, and porcelain as if they were gold. Power is visible in the sober, solid architecture of public buildings. There is no Baroque ostentation, but a restrained wealth made of quality brick and imported stone. Churches such as the Oude Kerk have been stripped of their Catholic images and gold during the alteration, becoming vast, white, austere spaces where the spoken word and the singing of psalms echo. The pulpit is the center, not the altar. Social control is exercised by the neighborhood and by church consistories, which monitor morality but turn a blind eye to profit, as long as it is earned through hard work. The city is organized around flow. The flow of water, the flow of ships, and the flow of capital. Public space is designed to facilitate commerce, and any obstacle to it is quickly removed or worked around. The true king of Amsterdam is the Florin. Despite its growing prosperity, Amsterdam in 1600 is a city living under constant tension and mortal risk. The fragility of life is evident in the very structure of its houses. Most are still made of wood, and fire is a fear that keeps citizens awake at night. A moment of carelessness with a candle or a spark from a hearth can reduce entire blocks to ashes within hours, fueled by the strong winds that sweep through the harbor. Watchtowers are always manned, and the city enforces strict rules on the use of open flames. Yet danger is always lurking in the narrow alleys. Beyond fire, there is the shadow of the plague. Population density, combined with the stagnant water of canals that serve both for transport and waste disposal, creates an ideal environment for disease. Epidemic outbreaks periodically sweep through the city, emptying houses and filling cemeteries, sparing neither rich merchants nor poor laborers. Life is short, and death is a familiar presence, visible in the frequent funerals that cross the bridges. And in the background, there is a very real war. The Dutch Republic is fighting a long and bloody struggle for independence against the powerful Spanish Empire. Although pitched battles are far away, the cost of war is felt in taxes and in the anxiety over the possible blockade of trade routes. The city is also socially vulnerable. Extreme wealth begins to accumulate in the hands of a few, while a mass of dock workers, sailors, and poor immigrants lives in damp basements, exposed to fluctuations in the price of bread. There is a tense balance between the freedom required for commerce and the rigid order demanded by Calvinist morality. The sea, the source of all wealth, is also the grave of many fathers and sons who depart for the Indies and never return, swallowed by storms or tropical diseases. The euphoria of profit coexists daily with mourning and the uncertainty of tomorrow. As we observe Amsterdam at this threshold of the 17th century, we are witnessing the birth of modern capitalism. The legacy of this city in 1600 would shape the world in ways we still feel today. The idea that companies can issue shares, that the entire world is an interconnected market, and that tolerance itself can be profitable, all of this was forged in these muddy streets and dark canals. The city's geography, with its constant struggle against water, created a resilient and innovative society that exported not only goods, but a model of urban civilization. The transition toward the city we know today would be marked by the construction of the famous canal belt, the Grachtengordel, which would begin only a few years later, transforming medieval chaos into a masterpiece of urban planning. Wooden houses would be replaced by brick and stone, creating the uniform aesthetic we admire today. The port would grow to dominate global trade for an entire century, the Dutch Golden Age. Yet the soul of the city remained the same, a place open to the world, pragmatic, and built upon water. Walking today along the banks of the Prinsengracht, or crossing Dam Square, the layers of time are visible. The royal palace you see now was built upon the foundations of that old town hall and weighing house. The canals still follow the logic of drainage and transport established centuries ago. Amsterdam did not bury its past, it absorbed it. The vibrant energy of 1600, the sound of foreign languages, and the spirit of enterprise still echo in the bicycles that pass and the boats that glide by. The city remains a monument to humanity's ability to build prosperity in a place where nature insisted there should be nothing but swamp. If you enjoyed this journey through time along the canals of Amsterdam, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us which city we should reconstruct next.